Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharp nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It is time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Talking tonight to Mr. Eugene Robinson, frontman, vocalist of the mighty Oxbow, writer, actor, general badass, awesome fella. Stoked to have him on. Welcome, first-time listeners as well as long-time listeners. The name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. The show airs weekly, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, on RadioNope.com. And it's later podcasted everywhere. That's where we talk about musicians. Why do you do what you do? Ennui, all that stuff. I've never done one of these pre-roll things. I know all the cool kids do it, meaning all shows that are more successful and known than mine. But it's something where I realize I probably need to start doing it. People kind of wander in. They don't know what's going on. Yeah, you don't want to be unwelcome. But there's a long-running show. A 7-year anniversary is coming up pretty soon. So that's wild. I think it's going to be 7 years, 250 episodes, which is, I'd like to say I planned that, but I really didn't. I'd like to say it. It would just be wrong. So this episode, Mr. Eugene Robinson of Oxbow, Whipping Boy, episode 245. And looking forward to having him on. Fascinating dude. If you haven't checked out his recent writings, he's an excellent writer as well as an excellent frontman. He's a fun man too, sure. Excellent musician. So Eugene's rad, and I'm excited to have him. It's been a while since he's been on. He's been on the show before. It's been almost 4 years. Yeah, episode 98. Okay, so that tells you what's going on. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring him on. Mr. Eugene Robinson. Eugene, welcome. I was just listening to Thin Black Duke, one of my favorite records of you guys, earlier today. I think it was well after I had you on the show last time, which has been like 4 years. It's been a while. I looked it up. It's been a hot minute. I named it the top record of 2017.
Nice.
So
Thank you for doing that.
You got that Protonic Reversal bump of 2 listens, I'm sure, and that's good. It means something.
Well, I thought it was a record of the year as well, so we concur. I mean, I told people before it came out, I was like, yeah, you might not like it, but the quality of this record cannot be denied. And I've not said that about the other records, so right. You should. I was in deadly earnest when I said that about that one.
I always appreciate your sense of self. I would say actually that, and I played a song off Serenade in Red and off of what's Evil Heat as well, which I like those records. But I too, so far, I think that Duke is the one. I think that's the record. But we can talk about that all day long. You got some news. You've got some news about something new that's happening, right?
Yeah, the IPECAC news, which is given that this is April 1st, April Fool's Day, one of my least favorite holidays. You need to know, mostly because it's not a holiday. It's just like a day for bad pranks. But it is indeed not a prank and in actual fact quite real. So after Hydra had left, we kind of decided to poke around and to see who was interested, looking for fellow travelers, and they emerged as being interested, which is strange because they had never been interested before. We asked them about that, and they were like, well, we didn't really like the other records as much, you know, but they, of course, got to hear a preliminary version of, I mean, we've not finished it yet, of Love's Holiday, and we're like, okay, okay, we gotta put this one out.
So after they heard the preliminaries, then they kind of brought them on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still, we finished all the vocals and we finished all the basics, and then we're still doing trying to figure out how to get a choir together in the socially distant time, you know. As well as, well, yeah, we've got a couple of solutions, you know, big enough rooms in LA where you could have people, you know, enough mics and enough people in the room, 6 feet apart, so that it actually sounds like something real. So, and then of course we've had, as usual, given, you know, Oxbow's deal, we've had a little bit of tragedy with Nico's father just died yesterday. So this inevitably will slow us down a little bit, but condolences should be sent his way, and yeah, you know, so
horrible.
I mean, Oxbow has always occurred around in honor, so that is not unusual.
Well, that's a shame. I mean, it's interesting that IPECAC is kind of only just now getting on board, because I feel that's always kind of been like, oh yeah, like when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, that works, that fits. Like they have a.
They were straight about it. I mean, you know, the reality of it is, the first time I contacted Aaron, who was it? Kristen Von Till said they want to release an Evil Heat on vinyl, and she said, well, you know, what did she say? She said. Neutron wasn't going to do it, but that we should check out these guys at Hydra Head. They were pretty interesting. They might do it. So I wrote Aaron, and Aaron, you know, Aaron Turner, as usual, to the point, was like, no. We're like, okay, all right, cool, you know. And so, but, you know, I appreciate.
Yeah, we're losing a little bit, I think, here.
Yeah, okay, there you go. It goes for a second. So, you know, we did ask, it says, my internet connection is unstable.
And that's not all that's unstable.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think we asked, or somebody asked, and they said, well, we always thought you guys are much more of a live band before and never really hit on record. But they felt like we had done so on Love's Holiday, at least what they heard of it, so.
I mean, there's something to be said for being forthright. That's
I appreciate it 100%. I mean, I can't. It's too much trouble for me to attempt to deal with gray shades. I It's just very easy for me. I'm on the spectrum to just ignore it. You know, and you got to be really direct with me, otherwise I'm not getting it. So.
Yeah, like you don't want someone blowing smoke. It's good. It's better to know where you stand, I think, in a situation like that.
But I mean, it was something that was, you know, these are just words. It was something that was kind of, I was curious about, not angry, just curious, you know. I mean, you know, people have different objectives and different reasons why they do what they do. And I've never succeeded in, I'll give you an example. You know, I published my fight book on HarperCollins, right? So since then, I've had a lot of people say, well, you're going to do a sequel, going to do part 2 or the second book. I mean, a lot of people have contacted me from publishers in Europe and France. And I want to put the book out in translation. So I contacted the guy who's the CEO of HarperCollins. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, like 80% of what he put out last year didn't sell more than the fight book.
Right.
But the guy just, you know,
wasn't looking for it.
Like the guy, you know, there's a guy who came on board at Warner Brothers and said, well, now that I'm the boss, let me see who we have here. Who's this Devo? And he's like, well, Devo's, you know, and he goes, fuck Devo. And he canned him. Didn't know anything about them. Didn't hit, was just like, they got to go. I mean, you know, people, I can't spend any portion of my time trying to figure out why people do what they do, except to maybe, you know, be a positivist and hope that, you know, that they do what they do because they have good reasons to do so. So, far be it for me to question them. But, you know, it doesn't change, it doesn't change the fact that, I still like and appreciate people who don't necessarily like and appreciate me.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it's something where, Oxbow has always kind of been like for the people that it's for too.
Yeah, and that largely informs my attitude. And you know what story, like in terms of origin stories, you know what I've heard again and again? I mean, I don't know any serious listener of Oxbow who liked us at first. In fact, some of the most hardcore Oxbow fans have been like people who bought the record, said, screw this, took it back to the store, and then it kept, and they went back and got it again. I mean, one of our biggest fans, he's dead now, but did that 3 times before he finally realized the fact that I've done this 3 times means that there's something here. So I get that. I hear that a lot.
Well, it's not a band that evokes, a gray response, right? It's going to be like either very hot or very cold, it seems.
Yeah. And I mean, different people hear different things, right? I mean, I've often felt largely that we were a musician's band, that if you could actually play an instrument of any, bass, drums, guitar, vocals, or you in the composition, that you listen to Oxbow a little bit differently than the people who were just there for the easy beats. So, and alternatively, from my side of it, if you were into writing and literature, you might have appreciated the lyrics. But the thing about digital is that a lot of times half the people at this point in time are not even hearing that we have lyrics, because Hydra had pursued this for a long time with iTunes, and when you bought an Oxbow record via iTunes, it also gave you the lyrics. But it's always been catch as catch can. It's never been quite reliable.
Well, and that's something that's like the digital age, right? The digital age is like, music as a commodity. Everything has to be like a one-size-fits-all situation. And what you lose is any band that has some nuance to it and has nuance and like has an entire presentation. Perfect example, I hold in my hand right now the Thin Black Book, which of course was a partner item, beautifully put together for the last record.
Well, that was done on purpose because we got tired of not being asked the questions in interviews that we wanted to be asked. Right. It's like, because as a journalist myself, I understand you're under deadline. You got to get the story. Alternatively, if you're freelancing, you got to get the story so you can get the money. And but it was just like it was too much. And what is that great line? Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. That I very clearly wanted to have something come out that left no excuses and we purposefully really limited, talked to Mark Thompson, who used to be at Hydra Head. And he said, we've had, really good luck with limited editions. And I go, yeah. He goes, no, real limited editions, not fake. We just keep printing them up and hoping you'll buy them.
Yeah. It's limited edition. It's only limited as much as we sell one. Oh, right. Let's go.
Yeah. So I did. It's like how I used to eat meat. I've been eating nothing but fish since 2007. But when I used to, right, like the 4 years before that, I would say, I'm going to eat meat as often as I think I could catch it in the wild.
Ooh.
Which is about once a month in actual fact. Average person working on their own is not going to be, I can't catch a squirrel, much less something more sizable to eat, right? So with this, I kind of decided that okay, what percentage of people, super obsessive Oxbow people, would actually want and benefit from this? And I figured on, I think whatever we did, I think we limited it to 500, and we also charged what it cost.
You charged what it was.
Yeah. So that right away, I mean, who's paying $50 for a book? Right away, it limited the number of people who would be interested. And I figured hardcore 500, that was plenty. Even though if the record sold 4,000, 6,000, 500 was enough. And they could help the rest of the world understand the lyrics. I mean, the lyrics were still there with the vinyl and the CD, if you cared to look. But if you're digital, it was still a catch as catch can proposition.
Well, and it occurs to me that it's something it's kind of special for the people that care about that kind of thing. Yeah. Like that's how I felt about it. I was like, wow, like how am I not gonna? That's great. They have like a book to go with this, and like of course, you and I have known each other a long time, and I've liked and respected Oxbow for a very long time. No, I say both liked and respected because those are always
because these are different things. And also the way I did it with the band members, I also, since everybody's always talking to me, it got to be kind of irksome. I said, you guys have your pages, and I don't give a shit. You can put anything you want on your pages, anything you want. I'm not going to edit it, So this is your chance to, to be understood in the way that you desire to be understood. So yeah, I was pretty happy with it.
On a small form fact, it reminded me of remember that Zeppelin thing where plants running around like being like a knight or something.
Oh yeah, the song remains the same.
Song remains the same. Thank you. As the sounds of like thousands of people start screaming at their listening device right now.
But Jimmy Page on the mountain with the rainbow sword.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
If you were high when you were watching that was like the height of everything, right?
But it occurred to me that it was like, oh yeah, that like makes sense for Zeppelin, and it's sort of like, oh, this makes sense for Oxbow, and the fact that even that like it's not even that, hey man, some people won't get it. No, literally, some people won't get it. They won't be able to think. Like I thought that was kind of like from the resident school almost of like, it makes someone feel like they're in on it, like they're a little in on it in a certain way. And I've seen people do similar-ish kind of things, but not in that way. And the level of care and attention to detail and stuff like this, I mean, it sounds like I'm selling, right? But like, it's only going to increase in value.
Well, we had the few copies. Apparently, some had gotten lost in the mail, and then they turned up. So we have put, I think there are 5 copies at Oxbow as a merch table page. And,
oh, really?
But these are copies that ordinarily we would keep just to have, right? Because typically in the past, I don't have Oxbow stuff. I've always sold it, right? It's like I figure it was like Peter North. At one point I was talking to him, the porn star, and he was telling me that I don't watch my own porn. And I remember at the time, this is back when I was doing Birth of Tragedy magazine. I remember at the time thinking, how bizarre that he wouldn't watch his own porn until you get older and you realize I did it already. I'm gonna.
I know.
Right. So typically I've always sold the stuff, and I'm doing the same thing this time, except I'm keeping 1 or 2 because I really like the book, and I don't know that we'll ever do anything like that again. So I want to keep 1 or 2. So.
I mean, like as far as things that sort of fully embody a band, a very creative band that like at a time period where you guys weren't punching above your weight class. You know what I mean? It all seemed to hit like at the right time for that record. That like you always were an ambitious band. There's always like the orchestral stuff, like bringing different like Bartok level compositions, stuff like that. Like one thing even when I first found out about you guys that I always appreciate, I was like, oh, they're just going for it. And that also is frequently misunderstood too, because of like some people it's like, what?
Yeah, well, I mean, if somebody went a level of critique, the critique would always be, what are they trying? And they misunderstood that we're not trying anything. We're doing it. That's what we're doing. There's trying and there's doing. We're doing it. And, it came, that it really started to improve. Well, we never had careerist notions, right? I mean, Whipping Boy had careerist notions, and that kind of ruined my experience of Whipping Boy, in actual fact. And I don't think we were super well served by I don't know, we weren't super well served by genre music, and we weren't super well served by where our heads were at. Whereas Oxbow, we just realized it's not going to make us money. It's not gonna. In fact, we lose money on every proposition. It's something that we do just to make ourselves happy. I guess we would, if we liked golfing, we would golf. I actually like golfing, but I just don't have the time to waste walking around with sticks.
Well, there's a there's a band called Martha's Vineyard Fairies. It's Elisha Wiesner, who was actually the last person on the show before you were, and Bob Weston from Shellac, and Chris Brokaw from Cum and Codeine, and they call like band stuff, like when they, hey, we gotta we gotta fly out and do this or whatever. They call it greens fees. Now I always thought that was a great way to explain that kind of band stuff.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, I'm sure.
You're goofy. That's you have fun doing the thing, and like it fulfills you in your way. It's like this. You're green.
Yeah.
So yeah, and what I was driving with all that is I feel like within Black Duke that you kind of like the ambition and the overall presentation kind of came to a head and came to a culmination of like, oh, that's like kind of unlocked a new level of things. Like when I think about like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds or something, right? Like people think about like epochs of time for him. Like, okay, here's where he was like fucking around with Grindr Man, and like he had the Sleazy Vegas record, which I love, by the way. I love that record. And then like, okay, he's like got like the weird kind of like sounds good on laptops, like claustrophobic kind of stuff like that. It almost seems like you guys have like really figured out a way to articulate your vision. Not that it was like a, unsuccessful before, but do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice an iota of the creativity, but is almost easier to invite people along too.
Well, it's a friend of mine once played with Chuck Berry, and because Chuck Berry was pulling the town, and
he just happened ever from that.
Yeah, exactly. and so they get on stage, and Chuck walks out and plays his guitar. And the guy's kind of like looking around, and he says, Chuck sees the confusion on his face, and he's like, what? He goes, what are we going to play? And Chuck just looks at him and goes, Chuck Berry songs. What the fuck do you mean? What are we going to play? Chuck Berry songs. So, I mean, at this point, with Oxbow.
What's happening here, buddy?
Yeah, we play Oxbow songs.
Right.
And there's, in the developmental life of a human being, there comes a point, if you're paying attention to yourself, there comes a point where I remember very distinctly when I perceived myself to be becoming, trying to be a certain type of man, in my 20s. And then sort of toward the end of my 20s, I realized that I had suddenly, and without much planning on my part, gone from the guy who was becoming to just the guy who was being. Like I no longer was trying to do anything. I just was who it is that I was.
Yeah.
And there was a quiet embrace of self, and typically that's usually really good, at least for the individual. Generally, it's really bad for everybody else around them. But in this instance, it worked out really well for me.
Since we've talked last, you've kind of bared down and dug deeper even more with the writing and embraced this I don't know, subscription model, like the kind of like pseudo subscription patronage model, whatever. But you can't argue with the results. Like these are great pieces, and I think they're tailor made for the internet as it is right now, if that makes sense.
Yep.
In the way that, there's an easy hook. Someone can be like, oh, I like Gang of Four too. Let me read this. And then like it turns out, oh, this is a really great thing about Gang of Four. Oh, Steve Albini, endlessly quotable, can talk to him about literally anything. Well, here's like, someone with a self-awareness of that, walking into that and coming up with something kind of cool that ends up being, cannibalized for, ultimate classicrock.org or whatever, I get it. But it's something that it seems like this model is well suited to your particular talents as an individual. Did you have any trepidation about kind of going down this road, or did it kind of just seem like this is just another avenue to walk through?
So you're talking about the publishing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I make my living as a journalist, right? So, and the very first piece that I ran on the Substack, Eugene Robinson, substack.com, right? The very first piece was a piece.
Get the name.
Yeah, the very first piece was a piece I had written for Ozzy. And they were like, no. And I go, it's a great piece. You guys asked me to produce stuff that was sticky, catchy, that people would. He said, yeah, but this is a little bit too much. And so I go, okay, what do you suggest? They go, do whatever you want with it. Publish it if you want. And so I kept thinking, well, maybe I should try to get somebody else to publish it. I go, why do that? Why? I actually, usually I'm trying to be egoless about this, and have, it's okay. Let an editor do what an editor does to it. But with this piece, I don't want any editing done. And it was about a rape that I witnessed when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And what is it you need? Is it stuck? The wife is getting her COVID shot, and that shit takes forever. So we're hanging out with baby until then. So I decided to publish it, and then I tried WordPress, and it was like, I don't have a lot of time between my actual official work duties. And so somebody said, the Substack is pretty easy. Of course, Substack has now got caught up in some sort of kerfuffle with, you know what? I can't be running pillar to post here. Well, I have no control over what they do with their business model. It was just super easy and convenient to get set up on. And they, unlike many other venues, they paid me on time. So
something to be said. Right?
but there are certain, my next novel, the first one was called The Long Slow Screw. My next novel is marginally about love and sex. So what I decided to do is, like I said, I need an outlet for this stuff that's usually too harsh to put on Ozzy or any other, or that I just feel is too precious to let anybody who's got half the skill that I have tinker with it. So I figured the Substack is a great place to publish the stuff, and I'm not cannibalizing stuff that I'm going to use later. Like, you know, the next book is called Love ? Love ! And it's about it's about West Coast porn. If you wanted to give it, you know, San Fernando Valley. It's a love story set in the porn industry.
Right.
And so I'm not telling, you know, there are lots of stories that, you know, that you could tell. I haven't worked with Hustler for years, and, you know, and there's stories that could be told in the Substack, but I'm keeping it to, you know, what I wish somebody at the New York Times would have said, specifically like the most recent one about guns. You know?
Yeah. Totally.
I'm sick of all these people with actual opinions. Like, if you get to the end of that gun piece, you don't know quite really where I stand on guns, you know, and that's okay. It's a meditation on guns, right? A very platonic one, you know.
Well, there's so much certainty in the writing world so often, and so much is unearned and not interesting. And I don't know, like I found it somewhat refreshing, you know, not the least of which is, you know, the subject matter can be esoteric and kind of all over the place. Like, you know, this one's about Bill Clinton, Karl Rove. Oh,
yeah.
Like, okay. Next.
Yeah.
Oh, a gang portrait. Great.
Well, you know, you mentioned something that was interesting. You asked me if I had any trepidation over it. And the reality of it is, I did initially, but then I realized that I'm done. Like, I'm dead. Like, you can't, when somebody's dead, there's nothing to, like, the internet has made, like, for many years, I worked corporate jobs, and nobody had any idea about my outside life. They'd say, "What did you do this weekend, Eugene?" And I'd say, "Well, you know, I gardened, you know," or, "Well, I did this," you know. Now, you know, I mean, and to Ozzy's credit, you know, in this Google age where you know everything about me, the only thing that my boss asked me before they hired me at Ozzy is, is there anything that you've done that will embarrass me? and I said, anything I've done that could embarrass you is already on the internet. He goes, that's not what I'm talking about. I go, well, what are you talking about? He said, have you been arrested? And I go, yes. He go, what were you arrested for? I go, false impersonation and false information to a police officer. He goes, what? I go, I told the cops I was Abraham Lincoln. He goes, what? Apparently they arrest you for that. And he goes, no. I mean, you know, with all the fighting and stuff, have you ever been arrested for assault? And I go, no, not at all. And he was like, okay. Brave soul, hired me anyway. You know, in this day and age, I am virtually unemployable just by virtue of the fact that I've been in a band called Oxbow. You realize when I was at EQ magazine, they found a trailer for Music for Adults, one of the early trailers. And as an editor-in-chief of EQ magazine, before I even started the job, there was talk about firing me on the basis of that 2-minute clip that's still up on YouTube, Music for Adults.
Wow.
And they had to talk about it. And finally the CEO says, well, hold on, this is a music magazine, right? At least he's in a working band.
Yeah.
And so they called me and said, well, we're actually not going to fire you. It didn't even dawn on me that was in their mind.
No, that was on the table. Yeah.
The most stunning thing is, this was the same company that had hired a guy who had a swastika tattoo on his fucking forehead. Okay? I mean, the guy worked in tech, so he wasn't on the front desk, but, you know, and he used to wear a hat over it. And then one day in the summer, he goes, it's too hot. I don't feel like wearing the hat. I don't feel like wearing it. And then they asked him, hey, maybe they asked him if he would wear the hat to cover the swastika. And then they said, I know. No, I don't want to. And then they finally fired him. This is the same company that wanted to fire me because that 2-minute Oxbow clip scared them. I mean, man, so I'm dead already. I'm dead. You know, it takes the kind of person that would say, I want to put money in Eugene's pocket. They're not many at this point, and it's foolish. I'm an award-winning journalist, but you know, people like, I don't, whatever. I don't want to complain. I'm just noting.
Absolutely. Well, and you bring up an interesting point with that too, because the whole idea of people, you know, not having their everyone comes with their own lived experience, right? And I feel like this happens with politics too. They're like, oh no, if somebody's like lived, then they're completely ineligible for that or the other thing. And it just occurs to me like how insane that is, and how much like, yeah, you may think that's what you want, but what you get is like Pete Buttigieg. It's like, yeah, that doesn't really offend anyone. I guess he's all right. He's like, you know, white boy, like third generation Xerox Obama knockoff. Fine, if that's your deal, good for you, man. But like,
I mentioned this before.
That's like your be all end all for what politics should be, because it sure isn't for me.
Well, listen, Diane Middlebrook, famous poet, writer, professor, who's married to Carl Gerasi, who did the Gerasi Foundation, and she actually put me up for a Guggenheim 2 or 3 times. At one point, I met her. When I was a furniture mover, and she decided she wanted to have a cross-class experience. She was going to ride along in the moving van with the movers, and then after about 5 minutes in the moving van, she turns and goes, "Wait a minute, you guys are not really movers," because we were talking about Nietzsche and some other stuff. She says, "No, we're students." And she goes, "Oh my God!" And then she got turned on to the whole birth of tragedy thing. And she said, "You know, you have to come to my poetry and poetics class." So I said, "Great." Lydia Lunch and I had worked on a story for Jim Kennedy's magazine called Thrill Killers, and we decided to do this piece called The Baby Doll Murders, which I then later cannibalized on Serenading Red for the song Baby Doll, and it was based on a dream that I had had. And so Lydia and I had worked on this piece together, and I came in and I said exactly what I just said now. It was based on a dream. Lydia Lunch and I had worked on it, and this was my contribution to it. It was supposed to be a 2-part piece in a magazine called Thrill Killers. And I read the piece that was about a rape in the woods, right? In which the rapist actually ended up being raped by the devil, right? So he attacks somebody. He's seduced in by somebody who then, it turns out, he either is or is not raping, who then changes into the body of a young boy, then changes into the body of Satan, and then the piece ends inconclusively.
Wow.
Right? It's a heavy piece. It was based on a dream or a magazine called Thrill Killers. After a couple of days goes by, I get a call from Diane. She goes, "Can you come in? I just talk to you?" I goes, "Yeah, sure." And she was like, "All of my graduate students are rebelling. They want you need to publicly repudiate you. They want you to apologize. They want you to," and I go, "For what? What is the problem?" "Well, that piece you wrote," and I said, "You know, and I know, if I was a 5'4" white cat with glasses, that this would have completely been understood as what it was.
Yeah.
6'1", 225-pound black cat with tattoos and muscles. You guys, the whole 10-minute preamble about where this piece came from and how it came to existence, it didn't compute for you. And the feeling that you felt of being upset, which is exactly how you're supposed to feel at the conclusion of that, you personalized and thought that I was telling somehow kind of a true story. So it's, you have to realize the form and function in the body that you're walking around in. And so at this point, trepidation, I had a moment of trepidation, but like I said, I'm dead and unable to escape. I can't escape people's uncomfortability, and so I decided to not be bothered by it.
Well, I think it opens up a lot of possibility because of that, right? Like, because there's there's something to be said especially in this era of just somehow both the search for and abject disdain for authenticity. Like, no, that kind of authenticity. That's not what I meant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what people. I mean, they're people. You want the real fake or the fake fake.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all sort of it's all one generation removed. But the reality of it is, it's like I've never told a lie ever in presentation. So maybe that's what they were responding to. I don't know, but like I said, I mean, outside of me very specifically preserving some pieces on the Substack for the book. Like, I don't want you to be reading the novel later and go, yeah, he already told me that. Yeah, he already, nah. So I don't want to do that. So I'm staying away from anything generally had fleshy or sexy that I might probably or have already used in the second novel. So.
Well, and I like that it allows you to at least give it a feel of it being extemporaneous and being times too, because there are things that you do that aren't topical. Like, Gang of Four is suddenly back on everyone's lips, right?
Oh
and
my God!
They
have you seen the box set?
I have, and I think I need to buy the box
set.
I
have it sitting right here. Oh my God! The packaging is just like really fantastic. I did not expect that at all. It's really phenomenal. I'm glad you participated.
And I might have a Protonic Reversal announcement pretty soon, cross fingers, about Gang of Four as well. But I thought your piece of it was awesome because it's sort of like, I've had people that, I've heard them, or I've heard of them. And like, I heard a song, or, like I know, like a little about them. I know they're influential. But none of the pieces or anything I've ever read about them ever kind of got across why they were important. And I loved your piece, not the least of which is just because I was like, oh, Eugene's a good writer. I'm sure this is worthwhile. I thought you got across why it's important.
Yep.
Why they're an important band. And I think that's, well, first of all, nobody gives a damn enough to try these. So I guess we can start with that. But like, but I think that's kind of like, that's a rare echelon of writing that you just don't see that much of. And I thought it was just a really cool, aside from all the other stuff, right? Yeah. Of like, man, I hope those guys saw this and like loved it, because
they had to. They had to, because that was their press release for this box set. So not only did they have to approve it, they had to approve it because they paid me for it. So this was work for hire. So I actually had to go back to them and say, hey, I'd like to run it in my newsletter. Do you give a shit? And they were like, go do what you got to do. So that was cool. Yeah. I did what I had to do. And at first, like, I didn't know what I didn't know whether it was, I did that bit on Screaming Jay Hawkins for Farrell, the intro to that book. And so I thought at first when Beggars had contacted me that it was for the book. And they said, no, it's not for the book. Then I go, it's a box set. I go, oh my God. So it's going to be part of the box set. And then I figured out that they had already printed the box set, so it wasn't for the box set. I said, what's it for? After I finished it, and they said, no, it's just for the press release. I was like, screw it.
It worked.
I got invited to the party. I'm on the totem pole. I don't give a shit. So
what it reminded me of, and bear with me here, is sort of like there was an era of like 60s sort of records that came out that like the back cover, instead of being like, oh, here's another cool picture, and like you get like an essay of why it's an important. And like, I always thought that was kind of cool. Like, and like, it's like when I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's trippy. And like, then I thought about like the fact, like, well, media was totally different, right? People like had different ways of finding out about stuff. So if you're sitting there like looking at a record store and you're like, oh, what's this? Oh, okay, let's read this whole essay. Okay, cool. And then
or like jazz records, I mean, which was my kind of antecedent, where it's like, jazz, unless you read Downbeat, wasn't really covered. Just screw it. We're going to put it on the record. Why? Because people would go to stores and like actually look at records and flip it over and read, oh, João Gilberto. Okay. And then you discover something about Bossa Nova, or,
Yeah, like, oh yeah, this record like inspired a couple genres, and like, here's something mentioned. Hey, this record inspired a couple genres.
Right. So yeah. The Gang of Four thing was cool. The Steve Albini thing was especially cool. And like I said in the piece, these are questions that I mean, at this point now, people's personas are pretty hard baked into I got a hard baked into the machinery. So it's hard to get through that, and nobody's going to think to do that, which is why the same thing that was in our head about putting out the Thin Black Book. It's like we're tired of people kind of whiffing it, foul ball, foul ball, foul ball, foul ball. It's like, all right, let us do the kind of pieces that we wish that you all would do. And that's the whole thing, that the 5 easy pieces portion of the newsletter, that, I've got some surprises coming up for people who I want to talk to. And I don't want to talk to them about it, the same stuff that everybody's talking to them about. And some people, I've asked some people, and I can see that makes them feel uncomfortable. Yeah. And there's some people who I'm only asking during the shutdown through email, because I know they'll be just as candid through email as they were in person. There's some people who you can only talk to face to face, because you can muscle them into answering the question, just through sheer power of presence, where you're not always going to be able to do it in email. People will distract, they'll avoid, they'll kind of weasel out. I mean,
there isn't someone looking at you being like, I would like an answer to this now.
Also, a prime example, and I don't mean this in any nefarious way, and I haven't, I'm not considering him for an upcoming 5 easy pieces, but you can imagine that, say, somebody like Jello Biafra has been Jello Biafra since 1978, right? So
basically,
if I email him 5 questions, he's just going to go off into Jello Biafra land, and that's not what I want. I want when you sit down at a table with some people who don't give a shit about the dead Kennedys, who don't know about Jello Biafra, and are just talking about stuff, not like I read in the newspaper. No. I'm not talking about stuff you read.
Right.
I'm talking
about Lindsey Graham is
that.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you a platform to preach via a newsletter. That's not the.
Yeah.
That's not. I actually want, something semi-serious. So.
Well, and so it occurs, and as someone that, of course, in my way, that's the kind of thing I try to do with this show, right? Like, it's, first of all, it isn't just a strict question answer kind of show, and the kind of things that I go for, are way different. And one of the reasons why is literally I started this show because, I'm doing the kind of show that I wanted to hear and couldn't.
Yeah.
And that's adorable, by the way. And I will always wave to a cute baby. Hello. But it's something where it surprises me how many people try to go careerist and safe, and they end up doing something that's you're just doing something like everyone else is. Why bother? If you're getting the same, if somebody's on a PR cycle and are going around doing the circuit and doing all the shows, and they tell me the same thing as everyone else, and I'm not interested in that. I don't care about that.
When I was a younger man, in the 80s, I remember at one point I had a particularly good run, and I had 5 girlfriends at once. Right? And a friend of mine called me on it, and he goes, "You're so full."
In 3, and that was enough. Let me tell you.
Yeah. He was like, "No, you called me on it." He's like, "You're so full of shit. You just," and I go, "No. You gotta understand that the what makes this difficult is if you actually aspire to not be full of shit, right? So, in other words, you're not repeating the same stories. You're not lying to people about your involvement with other people. You're actually, making, you're looking in the person's eyes and having a real experience.
Yeah, man.
5 times, right? Which is the flying Walendas. It's seriously. I mean, it was you had to.
Yeah, to be real.
It's easy to do that and be full of shit. It's not easy to do it and not be full of shit. And ultimately, the reason why you stop doing something like that is because it's exhausting. The reality of it, though, is the way I apply myself to, and I put the word in quotes, career, music, or literary, or writing. Is to if we take this computer medium away right now, and you were to walk in here and sit down, the conversation would not be markedly different than what we're doing right now.
I will personally vouch for that.
Yeah.
We've sat down at lunch and it was pretty close to this, right? I mean,
right. That's right. In Mountain View, right off of Castro. That's right.
And I think that's wild too, because like I said, again,
I mean, there are plenty of people in this music who you get, they do this. We used to have this great idea, Ballinger and I, the guitar player for Whipping Boy, have this great idea, like at some point in the future, you're going to be able to create a hologram of you on you. So that imagine you're playing on stage and then you step out of your hologram and your hologram is there. And we're like, oh, man, that would be so mind blowing. Of course, now, 20, 30 years later, that's something that you can do, right? So,
didn't they have like the Tupac hologram, like headline Coachella or something like that?
So,
Onion article or straight reporting? I can't tell.
Well, yeah. So many of these people who are in music that we care about and like have fundamentally done this. They've stepped out of themselves, and you're just interviewing the hologram. You're not interviewing the real person, and journalists make it possible for that to happen. I mean, nobody's asked half the people who I like in music a different question the last 10 years. You know, the last 10 years. And so, I mean, when I'm interviewed, you know, I'm trying not to repeat what I've said in other interviews. I'm actually trying to, you know, to actually have it be a unique and non-bullshitty, very real experience, you know?
Well, and it's also, and there's not to have this be just like, you know, Eugene and Conan critique journalism, but I feel like people are almost like it causes them physical pain to do background research sometimes. Where it's like,
yeah. I'll shut those people down fast. Like, so I don't know too much about you. What are you doing that's cool? It's like, you don't know too much about me, then why have you contacted me about this interview? How about I just tell the world how cool you are, and then you can like, feel proud, and we can
all save a bunch of time and effort.
Yeah. You're cool because you don't know who I am, and I'm a dummy for wasting my time here. So good luck to you. You know?
Well, and so it's wild to me that, and again, like, and you know, whatever. The critique of other outlets and other formats, you know, good on you. Run your race.
Yep.
Right on.
Listen,
you know, I know what I like, and I don't like when it's like, oh, good, it's the exact same show that I can hear, like, you know, 3 other times, or the exact same article I can read 3 other places. I like. You think I have time for that? I'm a busy goddamn man.
But you know, there are a few people out there who actually do the real work, and they've ended up in interesting places. You know, not always the places you'd expect, but I'm always pleased to read them when they're writing, because they're not full of shit.
So let's pivot a little bit to as a lyrical dude himself, and someone that kind of comes from the world of, like, you know, the bizarre slice of life sometimes, like, you know, the Hubert Selby Jr., like, Ballard kind of world. Like, how do you organize it? Like, is this something where do you keep notes and things along those lines? Do you is it all just in your head and it comes out when it comes out?
Well, what I'm trying to do, and I know we had that whole thing before about not trying but doing. So maybe let me change how I frame that. What I'm doing, and now that let's do this. This is going to be.
Okay, we're going to change the sound now. We're going to. Oh, it's time to get real. I'm intimate with Eugene Robinson right now, baby. Oh, that's not good. Okay. All right.
What I'm doing is, insofar as possible, trying to document the times of my life without being mawkish or maudlin, which we all have tendencies to do. If we're stars of our own drama, you know, I mean, at some point, I imagine, you know, the guys in the Rolling Stones felt the lyrical impact of a song like "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" very seriously and very earnestly. And it was, if somebody pulled up next to you in a bar stool and were, man, I can't get laid, you might feel for them for a certain period of time, but it's a hysteria, you know. I mean, modern rock music is born of hysteria, which is interesting because in other words, it's pre-disaster or concurrent to a disaster, whereas I view most American blues, which is where rock and roll came from, as being post-disaster.
Oh,
you know, so it tends to be a lot less, you know, hysterical and a lot lot more downbeat, and consequently over the course of time, a lot less popular than rock and roll. I mean, B.B. King made a lot of money. B.B. King didn't have his own jet, as far as I know. No, so I think what I'm trying to do is from and much more earnestly with Oxbow than I ever did in Whipping Boy, is from Fuckfest to Love's Holiday, which is a new record. I'm documenting very specifically, like I don't keep a diary, but that's the closest I'm coming. And the process is I'm trying to tell very real stories in a way that makes it hard for in an artful way that will get you to listen in a way that if I was just complaining about I can't get no, you would just stop listening, right? And then also at one point, somebody who I'd written a song about, I tried to say, I wrote a song about you because I thought they might like that or be interested in it. And they had zero level of interest in it. And what that did is it actually freed me up from thinking that I needed to involve the object of the literary endeavor in the endeavor, right? So, if you gave a shit, you would probably have picked up on it. If you don't give a shit, that's fine. So, the songs were inspired by real people, but I'm not, I can't, on paper, I can't take outside of sympathy for the devil. It's very hard to take the Rolling Stones seriously, And I mean, they're a great band.
I love them, but I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Lyrically, I'm always torn between feeling like they're putting me on, like it's some kind of weird shtick where they're putting me on, the girl with faraway eyes, and he's
that's Mick for you, man. Like Mick is like, and I mean no disrespect when I say this, but Mick is a goddamn businessman.
Yeah, so at this point, and not at this point, always. I mean, and I don't, whatever.
There's that side of like, it's like, okay, well, how much of this is like, hey, this is cool, and how much of like, I bet people would like this, and good on him. Obviously, it works out for Mick goddamn Jackson.
Yeah, it works out. But I mean, I wanted there to be a one-to-one. I don't know. I wanted the songs to matter to me in a way that was significant enough so that when I hear it, I don't cringe. And I guarantee you, if I kept a journal, I would cringe. I sometimes I have shuffle here in the house and the iPod that's permanently on, and sometimes a Whipping Boy song will come on and I'll kind of cringe. But you can excuse it. This is something that you expressed when you're 18 or 19, so it's very different, right?
It's sort of like, it's like maybe when you're in your 50s, less so. Who knows? But some people can pull it up. I gotta say, you're talking about like Satisfaction, right? The only song, there's so many songs like that, and one of the only ones I can think of that sort of like built on that to me was No Pussy Blues by Grinder Man, where I'm like, oh, that's the I can't get no satisfaction thing, but it's just like it's laying it bare and it's self-aware, but like not paralytically self-aware.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan, and one of the heights of my career was actually being able to perform with him at the London Jazz Festival. So, but I thought that was a little too cute by half, but whatever,
Well, and that's interesting because for me, again, huge fan, I agree. But like also like there is sort of hologram Nick Cave, like doing hologram Nick Cave stuff to a certain degree. Because this is a motherfucker that he like puts his suit and tie on and goes in the other room to the piano to go like write music every day.
Yeah.
Good on him. I find something beautiful about that work ethic, and that's fantastic. But it's like, I mean, he's also got it to Mick Jagger in him. He knows what people want to hear too.
But I don't think it's that. I think it's more that there are a couple of things happening, right? And one of the things, and I'm always on guard against this, and that's that the compulsion once you're standing behind a microphone to do something that, and comedians have this really bad. They in their origin stories, they always talk about the moment where they were standing on stage and they got their first laugh, and they were like, "I want more of that." And I actually am doing the exact opposite thing. I think you should resist the temptation when you stand behind a microphone to do something that's going to appeal to general use. I got to do something that appeals to me. And because that's what I want. Those are the fellow travelers that I want, people who kind of go, oh shit, him too? I thought it was only me. I don't need you to, to pander to me. I don't need the wink and the nod. Get it? Hey, buddy, you like this? Hey, I'm doing. Don't do this to me. Don't, really don't. It's a waste of both of our times. And there's a guy I was talking about last night. This guy, he's a professor, a philosophy professor of Spinoza up in Toronto. His name is Mike Rosenthal. And I remember he was the first California guy that I was really friends with. And he had this long kind of rabbinical beard, and we'd get into these conversations with people. And, I was kind of a rat-a-tat New York guy. And he would be, there would be these great long dead spaces in the conversation with him where he'd just be kind of looking at you, stroking his beard, looking at you without affect. It wasn't like he was nervous or he was just thinking. Yeah. And the process and thinking is not, and I understood that when I kind of backed off, and tonally, in terms of, I just decided to kind of sit back and say, this is how it's happening now. This is the pace at which it's happening, and we are creating here. And it's very different than dealing with people who are advancing shtick, right?
Or waiting for their turn to speak, even like where it's like, hey, you're not really listening. You're just kind of, okay, now, go, which I'm acutely aware of, and it's always notable in the show, especially of like, so, someone such as yourself, you got a lot to say. You're very good at speaking and articulating your thoughts. Mm-hmm. Some people, it's like, oh, you're just railroading through this. Okay, yeah, so. Right. Let me know. I'll raise my hand, I guess, when I can jump in here.
Well, I'll tell you, I had an interesting conversation with Mark Thompson, who used to run Hydra Head, and it was right after Danzig got knocked out on video backstage in Arizona by Danny Mariano from Northside 40. And Mark called me and he said, "Hey,
my friend Tom Reardon played in that band, by the way."
Oh.
I don't know if that, but
no, I didn't know that. But and
I forgot that. And we stayed with him on tour, and like it just came up in casual conversation. I was like, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that was my band." I'm like, I forgot that. How did I forget that? Like, oh my god,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
This continues.
No, but he Mark said, Eugene, would that fuck up your whole shtick? If you were to get knocked, I go, I would certainly hope not. I mean, I'm not trying to sell myself as the ultimate badass to end all badasses. In fact, my whole fight book is about having my ass handed to me. I think my mother said it best in Decibel magazine, where she did a Metal Mothers column, where the guy, he was like having this, cognitive dissonance with like, how he understood who it is that I was versus hearing it from my mom. And so he just, at the end of the interview, he just couldn't take it. He goes, "Have you seen him play?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, it's great. I loved seeing him play." And he goes, "Well, yeah, okay." She goes, "He's just a wonderful young." He said, "Yeah, but he's got a reputation as kind of a fearsome dude." And my mother just kind of paused and goes, "Well, it's probably not a good idea to try to do something negative to him, but he's very loving with his family." that was like, I really appreciated how she handled that and how she turned it. And it's like, I'm not the ultimate badass, but yeah, I'm just the person who probably, would it be nice to do something negative to.
Well, and I haven't read that fight book in years, but I liked it quite a bit. Because I think in the hands of a lesser artist, frankly, like that would have been a very different, much more obnoxious book. Like I think of like that the Art of the Game or whatever, that pickup artist thing that came out.
Jesus Christ,
yeah, where I was like, oh my god. Yeah. And then have to
it should be said though, the guy sold 1 million copies of that book, and he's never have to work again. But we don't have to get into that. So
good for that guy. But
good for that guy.
But I feel like, like one of the lessons to take away was like, hey, first of all, all plans go out the window the second, first punch lands, and like things basically just like not glorifying, just being like, here's like a forensic self-aware detail of what this is.
Yep.
And it ain't what you think it is. You know,
Right.
This is not like what it looks like in Rocky. Great movie, but it's not what it looks like in Rocky. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, wow.
Which is why I put that chapter in where I killed a man, because it's like, you know, it's not fun and games, man.
Yeah.
This guy's got to sit in court across from this cat's 9-year-old daughter. So
real.
Yep.
And then I think people get lost in the fantasy about a lot of things, and especially with the identity thing of like, yeah, I'm a tough guy. Oh, I'm a tough guy. I do tough guy.
That's such, you know, the one thing that continually bugs me about any kind of movies where there's any kind of action or fight scene, it's like, you know, anybody, if you jump up right now, and if you care to do so for 30 seconds, just set your watch for 30 seconds, swing your arms as wildly as possible. And at the end of 30 seconds, you let me know if you're capable of delivering a quip or a line without sounding like yippee, yippee, kaya, fucker. You know, so
do like a minute of high intensity interval training, and then try to like fight gonna fly, buddy.
Yeah, that's not happening. So.
Well, and the reason why I was originally this is me sort of asking, like, how do you collect the lyrics? And part of that's like process, right? So is it something where when it's time to like write lyrics for the thing, like, do you have it mapped out in your head ahead of time? Is it more kind of like, all right, let's, you know, take a little bit of the paprika over here and a little sea salt?
Nah, I mean, they're all meditations on personal development, you know. So it's like, if you want to Siddhartha, maybe it's like the best corollary, you know. So there were things happening, but it's never coincident, because it takes a long time to put out the record. So by the time a record like An Evil Heat had come out, that stuff had already happened, you know. But it was a way for me to document the stuff that happened, and you know, the record takes the time that the record takes. So, and that's typically, you know, depending on, I mean, you know, between Thin Black Duke and Narcotic Story, those things happened well before, but there are things that happened, right? I mean, you know, heavy things that happened that, you know, at some point somebody said to me, Eugene, you really should write a memoir. And I was like, yeah, you know, I can't do that. I can do something else, though. I can deliver, you know, a lyrical roadmap through stuff that if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you might be able to figure out that maybe there's something more to this than fiction. I
mean, I think I might have said this last time you were on, but just in Long Slow Screw, like, which I liked quite a bit, you know, there's just like a phrase where you like, you know, something or other, mediocre misery. And I was like, God damn, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Like, I sat with that for a while. Like, I actually, like, it was at the end of a chapter or something, right? So I like, damn, mediocre misery. So much of life is mediocre motherfucking misery. Yeah. And like, it's the thoughtfulness of it, and knowing full well that it's not, you know, it's not something that comes out lightly. Yeah, but there's a lot of like phrases like that, and a lot of things like that, and it's, you know, and I think there's like, oh, it's just some dumb rock and roll guy, whatever, you know, this, that, oh, this dude wrote a book about fighting, how like literate can this be? And you know, that's dumb. But then there's also the other end of it, right? The Hemingway worship of like, oh, well, if you're a man of the fists, you're a man of the words, which is like, get the entire fuck out of here with that also. Well, the thing that I always liked, I mean, one of my favorite reviews was Diamonda Galas had said, you know, she goes, I thought you were just, if she said not very complimentary things about my voice, but she said about the writing, she goes, I thought you were just one of these dumb rock guys who was going to write a book. Instead, you know, you're actually a real writer. Yeah. Who also happens to be a dumb rock guy. And I was like, okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. You know. Diamanda, man. What are you gonna say? Right? Yeah. I laughed and took it. You know, it was funny. So it's like the thrill of a lifetime to be on the radar, let alone when it's like a nice, like, you know, all right, fair. Yep. Well, you know, there are lots of guys out there who in bands have written books, and you know, I don't know that I've read any of them. So. Yeah. You know, I mean, if you've come to my notice and it's significant because you make music, I think I'd focus on that. And if the book is actually, you know, there's a friend of mine, Adam Smyer, who's written a book called Knucklehead, which is phenomenal. And Adam plays bass, you know, but I don't know him as a bass player. And at this point now,
what he's done in his book Knucklehead was just head and shoulders. Philip Rothian, but he's not a Jewish guy from New York. He's a black guy from New York. But Knucklehead's a great book. So.
Well, and so there are people like the Elvis Costello book I liked quite a bit, if nothing else, because it played with the form a lot. And very clear, like, this is a very intelligent guy. And as much as, like, there's the whole, like, wide in the way he, like, shifts viewpoints and things like that. And there's a whole wide swath. I'm like, you couldn't pay me to listen to that music. But I enjoyed reading thoughts on it and kind of interjecting it with this second person narrative. Now there's lyrics, now it's third person narrative. Like, I thought that was cool because it played with the form. The John Fine book from Bitch Magnet. That one was good too. That one kind of pushed things forward a little bit, and like I like the idea of him kind of like almost doing like a "Please Kill Me" kind of deal, like bringing other folks. But you know what, man? It's kind of slim pickings. Like really, when it comes down to it, and I like the form, and I'm rooting for it, just like how I'm rooting for other people's podcasts. I'm rooting for your podcast to be good.
Yep.
What am I going to say here? But
well, that's like Albini said something in the interview that I liked. He goes, "Nobody deserves your attention. You parcel it out as you like, and for things that you find to be significant." So I can like that you've done something. And I have a friend. It took me years to figure out why she was so angry with me, and I finally figured out it was because she's written a couple of books, and she gave me the books as gifts, right? And I didn't realize that what was supposed to happen then is I was supposed to read the book and then tell her what I thought of the book. And pretty much that it was a great book. Well, it takes me, it takes me a long time to get with stuff. And if I'm writing nonfiction, I only like to read fiction. And if I'm writing fiction, I don't like to read nonfiction. So it's not, I just never got around to it, which I think she had done the math on that and said he either read it and didn't like it, in which case fuck him, or he didn't read it, in which case fuck him. So in both cases, it came out to fuck Eugene. So
she already ran the fight math and the numbers.
Yeah, but then I have some people who gave me the books and they were like, cool, I guess he'll read it whenever, and then cool, that's cool.
I can't remember if we talked about this before, so pardon me if we did, but the thing with Dukowski that you were putting together, that brief moment in time for blackface. Like, can you speak a little bit about that? Like, that seemed like so full of promise, and then it was just in and out.
I don't know. I mean, I mean, 10 minutes. Yeah. So, I don't. I mean, I tell you, at one point, I sort of realized that. Call it foreshadowing, and that was when we did a show together, just the two of us, in near where Madame Wong's used to be, in some club down in LA, and it was me doing spoken word and him playing bass. And at the end, the loadout was kind of shitty, and at the end we were loading it out and load out gear, and he was having a hard time with his bass cabinet. I was like, yeah, oh man, I forgot. We're all older now. So I said, hey man, let me help you. So we helped him, and I love Chuck, but the guy spent more time, paid his dues, and not wanting to be in a band that tours all over the place without his family close by or around. But like he tried to explain to me why he didn't want to do it, and I was like, So, if somebody's ever tried to explain to me why they're no longer going to have sex with me, I don't want to hear it. It's like the not having sex with me part. That's pretty much all I need to know. The whys and the wherefores of it, unless you think it's going to make me a better person, I don't really need to hear it. So,
right.
And so he tried to explain, and I was like, you do not have to explain to me. I got it. You just don't want to do it. So that was the end of that. It was fun to do while it lasted. And I have to tell you something, those songs, I mean, it was only his Black Flag songs. They were really, really tough to do. Really, really fucking hard to do. Which is not what you would expect when you're in the audience at a Black Flag show, right? You're in the audience at a Black Flag show, you were like thrashing around, and every now and then you'd, break out with Rise Above, Rise Above. Yeah, but try singing that song from beginning to end. Not that easy. Newfound respect for Rollins and indeed for any singer that sang those songs, because it wasn't easy.
Yeah, man, that was I mean, that was a cool moment in time that even like happened at all, right? But it was a rare echelon of things where I was excited that it was happening. You know?
Well, yeah, you tell me, man. The biggest thing was we're going to play support for Iggy Pop at the Off Festival in Poland, and they're going to fly us over and get pretty good. I think they're going to give us like 19 to 20 grand to play it, and that would have been really phenomenal. And he bailed on that, and that's the part that killed me the most.
Oh,
that would have been. I mean,
yeah.
just because I would have wanted, just because I want to see Iggy Pop, and again, it was like lightning in a bottle because subsequent to that, they had all those crazy lawsuits and then all that kind of, agita over, and then it clearly is not something I would try to do again now. It just the magic was gone. So
the punks suing punks. I think it was a Free Kitten song.
Man, every single person. I mean, there are a few exceptions, but I've never seen a generation more dedicated to destroying legacy. Whether it's the Bad Brains, Black Flag, or the Dead Kennedys, they have consistently been their own worst enemies. So
you gotta love. I think Ray was expressing support for Mitt Romney from the official Dead Kennedys account, and then was like surprised that people maybe didn't care for that or thought that was.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, and then they came out that it was their webmaster or some kind of, and I stopped listening. I didn't care.
Exactly, and it's like, you know what? I want no part of this. This is like a higher. Good, man. I'm good.
Yeah.
So what's up? So IPECAC for the new record, right? So when's that going to be?
2022.
All right, and
that's all we got. And I mean, I probably before then you get the Oxbow record with Peter Brotzman, the live record from the Moors Jazz Festival that we did.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
that's going to come out first, and I know that because we just finished mixing it, and so we have a date for mastering. Aaron Turner is working on the artwork for it, so I know Trust is putting it out overseas, and SGG is putting it out in the States, and that'll probably hit sometime this fall. So that's the first thing. And then I've got a side project, Buñuel, that has their third record coming out called Killers Like Us.
And then you got the Substack too, Eugene S.
Robinson .substack.com. Yeah, you should check it out.
Go get it. So I don't remember if we were doing this last time or not. It's the only canned question I ever asked. I just like hearing people's process as they go through it. You can choose to interpret it however you like. But Eugene Robinson, why do you do what you do?
It amuses me to do so. Much more so than lots of other things I can think that I might like to do. And I've done them all. I mean, canoed, paintballed, I ride a unicycle. I mean, these are all things that I've done over the course of time. But there was a point at which I decided spent a lot of time on stage before doing music as an actor. And I remember in 1981 doing Emperor Jones with Andre Braugher, who went on to win Emmys and is on that TV show Brooklyn 999 or whatever right. And we did it, and he was super excited. He goes, they were holding us over from Berkeley Theater Group, Berkeley Theater Rep wanted to take the show on the road, and I just wasn't interested. And I went out, I said, you guys didn't talk to me about this, you didn't arrange it with me, get somebody else. And they're like, no, it'll be really cool. And I said, yeah, okay. And I went and I cut my hair into a mohawk, and they were like, fuck you. And I was like, hey, told you should talk to me before. But I really at that point decided that I'm an artist, and that acting is a craft and not an art. Well, music is I'm writing the lyrics, writing the songs, performing the lyrics and the songs, performing the performance of it, and that it was 100% me 100% of the time, and gave me much more satisfaction than reciting words that somebody else had written on a set that somebody else had designed with actors who were, reciting other words that somebody else had written. They could fake it well, and there's some benefit to that, but I didn't want to spend time around fakers. So that was when I kind of stepped away from acting. And though I went back with Leonard Part 6 and, the TV commercial with Gus Van Sant, and, but that's been to make money. Music is is a true love affair, because it takes into account the performing, it takes into account the writing and singing, which I do as I do.
Yes, you do. And I for one, I'm glad that you do.
Thank you.
Eugene, it's a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Conan. Thanks for having us, man. Conan. Okay, man.
All the best, brother. Take care. There he goes, Mr. Eugene Robinson. Fantastic. Let's hear some Oxbow, y'all. Ekihomo. Ekihomo? Ekihomo. I don't know. ECCE space HOMO. Esse? I don't know. I love that record. That's and then before that, Cold and Well Lit Place. Those are both off Thin Black Duke. Came out in 2017. That's when that record came out. And along those lines. But hell of a record, if you don't know it. Oh, yeah. Top 10 albums of 2017. Number 1 with a bullet. Okay. Great one. That's from the mighty Oxbow. Again, right, that's Sorry by Oxbow. That was a Oxbow block. That one is off of An Evil Heat. Of course, before that, we had Over, which is off of Serenade in Red. And before that, we had a block from a record I like quite a bit. Great record. Which is to say that top record 2017, great as far as I'm concerned, which is Thin Black Duke. Going to be talking to Eugene shortly here, and I think we'll talk about that record and maybe some news. I think there's some news. If you pay close attention to the internet, maybe this is old news. If you don't pay that close attention to the internet, you know, then I'll get to break it. The news, not anything else. Let's listen to one more tune here. Let's hear some Oxbow, y'all.
Your life as finishes.
So there you go. Name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I'd like to thank my guest Eugene Robinson of the Mighty Oxbow, Whipping Boy, Substack, so much more. Highly recommended. Check out that Eugene S. Robinson Substack if you are someone that likes good writing. It is quite good. New Oxbow record coming too. That's awesome. Excited to check it out. Yeah, name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you very, very, very much for listening to it. The show airs Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Yes, Eugene, it's live. I said that like about 3 times, by the way, too. Archives at protonicreversal.com. Always free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. However, if you like the show and you want to hear episodes sooner, $1 a month at the Patreon level, patreon.com/Protonic Reversal. That'll get you there, man. Thanks to everyone for liking the show, both in reality and as how the internet means that. Subscribing, sharing the episodes around. I really appreciate it. It's pretty much the only way anyone finds out about it.
50,000 watts of power.
But hey, I'm not complaining. Hey, I'm just saying.
I want to ionize the air.
Cool stuff coming up. Can I talk about some of it? There's one I really want to talk about, but you know what? I'm not going to say anything until it's done.
This microphone turns sound into electricity.
Eugene Robinson got vaccinated, so should you. Stay safe out there.
Out on Route 128, in the dark and lonely.
And take it easy.
I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency,